Welcome back to Simplifying Small Business. I am Karen Velez, and today we are talking about the part of business that almost never shows up on any kind of a checklist you see as a small business owner, and that's momentum. Because there's a season in nearly every business when you're doing the work, you're showing up, you're posting to social media and serving your clients and improving your product offers, and it still feels like growth is crawling. And that's when it becomes painfully obvious that motivation isn't enough to get things done. And you start asking yourself, is this working? Am I doing enough? What if I'm not cut out for this whole entrepreneurial business ownership thing? And why does it feel like everybody else is growing faster than I am? So, you know I love systems, and today we are going to build a simple system for staying consistent when the results are delayed without relying on hype or hustle or constant inspiration or motivation. It's about consistency and dedication, and that keeps the momentum moving forward when maybe the motivation has waned. Let's dive in. So there is a very normal psychological reason for why motivation drops when our growth maybe feels slow. And it's because our brain is a feedback machine. It learns what to repeat, basically, based on rewards. So if you do something and you very quickly see sales, or you get a lot of praise for it, or maybe you put something on social media and you end up with a bunch of followers for it, or whatever a win is signified to you, then your brain goes, oh, let's do that again, right? But in business, many of the most important actions that we take have very delayed rewards. Search engine optimization on your website or on your social media profiles takes time. Getting referrals takes time. Building community trust, learning a new skill, improving your systems in your business. These all take time. And so that's why it can feel like you're doing all of the right things and you're still not getting enough back. This is delayed reinforcement, and it's one of the hardest conditions for maintaining behavior. Consistency becomes much easier when the rewards are more immediate and predictable. So if you know anything about B.F. Skinner, the American psychologist, his work on reinforcement schedules is absolutely foundational here. He argued that behavior is shaped by environmental consequences rather than internal mental states. So basically, what he was getting at was being our own hype man can only get us so far. Motivation is an internal mental state. Seeing results of some type is an environmental consequence. We just have to learn how to get those consequences from small, consistent actions in our business to tell our brain that we are making progress. So if you've been struggling, it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have a viable business, or you're not cut out for this. And those are very normal feelings, by the way, to have along the way. It just means that you're working inside a system, which is building a business, that doesn't always reward effort very quickly. So that means that we need a different fuel source other than motivation. So we need to swap motivation for a momentum system, right? Motivation is very unreliable. Systems are reliable. I will die on this hill. So instead of trying to get yourself motivated to feel motivated, we just build a structure that makes forward motion easier on those very low energy days, or those days when we're just feeling like nothing is working and we're not moving forward, okay? I'm going to give you a 3-part little system that consists of just a tiny daily commitment, a scoreboard of some sort for you, and a very simple weekly reset ritual. These are all evidence-aligned strategies from behavior science and habit research. I'm going to leave a bunch of links to the research for you in the show description. But the idea is make the behavior small enough to repeat, make it measurable, and then connect it to consistent cues. So the first part of this is for you to set up your minimum workable day, okay? A minimum workable day is the smallest version of your business routine that still counts as showing up. We're not crushing it. We're not winning, all this stuff. We're just staying in motion, right? One foot in front of the other. Yes, there's going to be seasons in your business where every day feels like you are on fire. Those seasons are easy. We don't need to build a system to keep momentum going in those seasons. This system is for when our brain just needs a little help seeing that we are accomplishing goals in those other seasons where we may be struggling. So pick 2 to 3 actions that are small and repeatable and that are directly connected to sales or service or visibility. So if you sell services, maybe, these actions are things like sending one follow-up message to a lead, just one, or spending 15 minutes on one client deliverable and sharing one helpful insight. Maybe this is to your email list or in a social media post or on LinkedIn, whatever it is that you use, right? Small, repeatable, and directly connected to something, sales, service, or visibility, right? If you sell products, this could be improve one listing. So, swap out the photo, do a better description, improve on the keywords, something like that, right? Post one product use tip and, do 15 minutes of fulfillment or inventory or some sort of prep that makes tomorrow's stress a little bit lower. And, for any business, this could look like doing those capturing and clarifying tasks, right? Just for 10 minutes. So taking the things from your inbox and deciding where they go, the to-do list, the not this week list, your reference, your maybe someday pile, or just the trash. It's not something that you need to do, right? Work for 20 minutes on one priority project. Do one outreach action. So a pitch, a collaboration, a referral, something. That's how you build just a minimum workable day. Any one of those things, and just pick 2, right? 2 of those that you accomplish during the day. Getting this into a list and making it to where these are things that you can actually accomplish kind of protects you from this all or nothing trap. This idea, well, if I can't do it all, then I'm not going to do anything. No, I can tell you, I am a fitness instructor and a nutrition coach, okay? I've studied the science. Nothing derails an exercise or nutrition plan faster than thinking if you can't get one full workout in, then you won't do anything at all. Or having a high-calorie snack that wasn't in the plan for the day, and all of a sudden you're deciding the entire day's nutrition is out the window and you're downing a whole bag of Oreos. No, a 15-minute workout when you can't do an hour is fine. A little slip up in our nutrition, but continuing with the rest of the day as planned is fine. 3 small things we tackle in our business as the minimum for our day is fine, because an all or nothing mentality is where momentum goes to die, okay? Something is better than nothing. The second part of this is to build yourself a scoreboard. So where a lot of businesses or business owners get stuck is that we only measure results that show up after we've done the work. We call these lagging indicators. These are the results that happen based on our actions or our work. So lagging indicators are things like sales, right? Revenue, new followers on your social media, or if you do a podcast like I do, new downloads or more downloads, or people actually inquiring about your products or your services. Now, those metrics absolutely matter, those, lagging indicators, but they're not great for daily motivation because they aren't responses that happen immediately. It takes a while to get those results from the other work that you're doing. So we need to pair them with the leading indicators. Those are the actions that we are doing. These are the actions that we control, the things that we do that eventually lead to getting the results that we're after. So leading indicators are things like the number of outbound messages that you send or offers that you make, the number of content pieces that you publish or proposals that you send, product listings that you have improved or the number of customer follow-ups that you've done, email campaigns, network touches. All of these things are leading indicators. They're the things that we are doing to get the results that we're looking for. So your step 2 is to set up your scoreboard to track 1 to 3 leading indicators weekly. Not all of them, 1 to 3. Again, just enough to prove to yourself, I am doing the actions that create growth. Because in the slow seasons, your brain needs evidence that you're not stuck, you're just in a build phase, right? Tracking those actions proves that you are working towards something. And then the final piece of this puzzle is to set yourself a weekly reset ritual. Once a week, do a 20-minute reset, okay? And it's just something that you are going to do that reflects back on your week. Try to keep it on the same day every week if you can. And ask yourself, what worked this week? Okay, just that question alone, 3 things that worked this week is going to reward your brain a little bit. And then you can dive a little bit deeper into that. What felt stuck? What doesn't feel like it moved forward? Write down 1 or 2 of those things and then figure out what is the next right move here. Choose one priority that you'll work on the next week that's going to help get those things feeling unstuck. And then think about what your minimum workable day is going to look like for the next week, right? So pick those 2 or 3 things that are going to be your absolute minimum if there is a day next week where you just feel sort of flat. And if you accomplish those things, then your brain will see it as a win. And the last part of this reset would be, something that I encourage everybody to do every once in a while in their business, and that's to think about, what do I need to stop doing? So pick maybe one boundary that you need to enforce or reinforce. Think about what we talked about way back in episode 1 about anti-goals and the things that we refuse to do in our business. Have any of those crept in that maybe we need to set some boundaries around that are also going to help us with that momentum? So having a little ritual like this just once a week reduces that constant overthinking that a lot of small business owners do that kind of borders on obsessiveness sometimes, right? And it improves our ability to adjust our approach. Researchers call this self-regulation and feedback loops, right? When we're pursuing our goals, we need to be able to reevaluate every once in a while. A lot of the time, the problem with a lack of momentum is because that self-doubt starts to sort of creep in. You hear that phrase a lot. What is it? Imposter syndrome. And I don't love that phrase. And I'm with Gary Vee on this. If you ever listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, he says that, what does he call it? I think he said that it's just low self-esteem is what it is. That imposter syndrome is just low self-esteem. And I kind of agree with that. I think it's just a little bit of self-doubt, and that's normal. That happens a lot when you are learning, especially something new. And I'm telling you, if you are a new business owner, you are always learning something new, whether it's about how to run a business or how to operate your particular business, or if you're learning something new about your craft or whatever it is that you operate your business around. If you're stretching yourself in any way, you're trying new things, there's going to be some self-doubt that shows up. If you're being evaluated, even if it's by your own expectations, then yeah, you might have some doubts about how things are going in your business. And again, if the results of what you are going for, the results of your goals are delayed in some way, then yes, self-doubt is absolutely going to show up. This is totally normal, but we cannot let it drive our actions, okay? So do not treat these feelings as instructions for what you should be doing. Feeling discouraged does not mean, okay, well, it's time to quit. Feeling behind on things does not mean it's time to panic. And feeling uncertain about what's happening in your business does not mean that you are failing in any way, shape, or form. It means that you're human and you're in the middle of doing a hard thing, because running a business is a hard thing, period. Okay? So we have to learn to separate the data from the drama. What are the facts, the numbers, the outcomes, the behaviors, versus what story am I telling about the facts? So if the fact is that sales were down this month, the story should not be, well, I'm not good at sales. No, that story is optional, right? Use the data to decide to make an adjustment. Change your offer, change your messaging, change the amount of times that you are doing outreach during the month, or improve your conversion steps in some way. Don't build an identity statement out of something that is a temporary metric. We also have to realize that when we are emotionally activated, right? We're stressed, or we're embarrassed, or we are discouraged about something in our business. We tend to make short-term, fear-driven decisions. So we need to set a boundary about making decisions at the right time in our business. So, the rule should be put in place that we only make big decisions in our business after we have done one of these resets, right? Not after a bad day of seeing low sales and disappointing performances on our marketing posts, and after a bunch of unsubscribes off of our email list. We want to decide after we have reviewed the week and we've looked at those leading indicators, and then we can choose a calm, data-driven next move. So staying consistent in our business does not require constantly being in hustle mode. There are several tools that work especially well for micro business owners, those of us who are doing a lot of this completely by ourselves. And we've talked about this before. One of them is those implementation intentions, those if-then statements or if-then plans, right? This is a very well-supported behavior tool for follow-through, and it's sort of like habit stacking. So if it's Friday at 5 p.m., then I do my weekly reset. Or if that's too stressful, then maybe it's Monday at 9 a.m. I do my weekly reset, right? If I make coffee, then I send one follow-up message. If I finish my client work, then I spend 15 minutes on marketing, right? Link the behavior to a cue. Then it reduces decision fatigue, right? And it just increases our consistency for the actions that we are trying to become consistent at. The second thing is to just make the first step of any task absurdly easy, like comically easy. When motivation is kind of sunk, right? We don't need just a bigger pep talk. We just need a smaller first step. So if, on our to-do list, we've got something that says, work on your marketing, that sounds overwhelming. It's big. That's a big step. So maybe our one single first step is to open the draft for the new marketing funnel, right? Something that simple. Obviously, you're going to take a next step after you open that draft, but the brain recognizes that first step as being simple, easy, straightforward. So the task becomes not fix my website, because that's so broad and could be so encompassing. It could just be write one sentence for the updated bio, right? Or write the headline for the About Me page. Like, that is one very, very simple step that we know is going to lead to more steps afterwards. Starting small reduces that friction, and friction is often the real enemy, not just for our customers, but for ourselves. So even if it means setting yourself a timer for the tasks that you are loath to start.
Loathe entirely.
And telling yourself just 15 minutes and then I can quit. you're often going to find that you will get into the task and find yourself making some progress and gaining some momentum, and that lasts way longer than the 15 minutes. But setting that timer gives you an out if you truly are having difficulty with the task, and it still gives your brain a win. And then the final tool would be to protect some sort of a high leverage hour in your work week. I mean, even in your slow seasons, carve out 1 hour for something that compounds, something that moves the needle forward, improving your products or your offers, improving your messaging, building partnerships or doing outreach of some sort, creating some evergreen assets, or creating, a simple repeatable system of some sort in your business. If you can carve out 1 hour 2 or 3 times a week, even better, and then just protect that hour. Put it on your calendar. Make sure you have that time blocked where you don't have any interruptions, because this is where the future business is built. These are the things that are going to continue to move that needle forward. These are the things that continue with that momentum, okay? So if you get truly, truly discouraged in your business, sometimes that vibe or that feeling of slow growth, well, sometimes it's just a vibe or a feeling, but sometimes it's actually a signal. So if you've been consistent for a while and the results are still flat, then maybe it's time to do a little diagnostic. Check to see if you are really visible. Are people seeing you? Are they seeing your business? Through whatever means that is, whatever type of marketing it is that you're doing. If no one knows you exist, nobody can buy, nobody can access your services or your products. So fix those leading indicators, increase them, whatever ones are tied to your visibility, to see if you can get that to change. Check and see whether or not your messaging is clear. Do people understand what you do or what you sell? If your offer or messaging is confusing, people won't act. So maybe simplify your message into a very clear problem, solution, outcome sort of tract. Go back and listen to some of these earlier episodes to get yourself into a position where people really do truly understand what it is that you do and what you offer. Check to see whether or not your products or your messaging is converting. Do people trust being able to take that next step? If the purchase or the inquiry process feels hard, people won't follow through. We have to reduce the friction. We have to reduce the steps, improve the call to action. And then check to see whether or not your offer is priced and positioned realistically. If you're too cheap, you may attract the wrong buyers. If you're too expensive for whatever your current level of proof is, then you may need better packaging or just stronger credibility signals. So adjust that offer structure before you assume that you just need to work harder to get new clients in or to bring new customers in. All of these things can turn discouragement into action without completely spiraling you out of control to make it think like you just aren't very good at this whole business thing, right? So if it's been going on for a while, maybe put it through a little bit of a diagnostic to see if there are things that you can actually change that are going to change the outcome. So here is what we are calling your momentum system, right? Create a minimum workable day every week so that you can keep showing up even when it doesn't feel like you want to. Track those leading indicators so that you can see progress before results arrive. Do a weekly reset so you can stay calm and you can adapt. And use those if-then plans and tiny first steps to protect your consistency. Momentum isn't about being hyped all the time. It's about making forward motion easier than stopping. If you're in a slow growth season and you want support staying consistent without turning your life into a constant hustle experiment, come join us inside the Growth Table Small Business Collective. This community is built for micro business owners who want simple systems and clear priorities and steady progress. You get practical trainings, accountability, and a room full of people who understand what it's like to build something real, just 1 week and 1 step at a time. Head to growthtablesbc.com or just click the link in the show description. Your first week is free, and I would love to have you inside. Remember, you've got this, and I am rooting for you. See you next week.